Hey guys, today we're going to be talking about power creep. And honestly, the power creep on this game is so insane that we could unironically all of the bestials right now, put all of them back to three and it would change nothing. Literally nothing. Is that not absurd to think about? If we put Magma to three, well let's go ahead and put this to unlimited real fast. Okay. Boom. Three of Magnemite, and then we just throw in three of Serenir as well. I don't know, something like this wouldn't matter at all because these cards, uh, these bestial cards specifically, they do best specifically when they're usable as both hand traps and engine. Right now, no deck is really going to be using them as hand traps, so the only option left is engine. So if we look and run well bestials as engine right now, we have branded. Is branded that good right now? It might be about okay. And that's about it, honestly, right? So, yeah, uh, branded doing okay, I guess, right about now. But this is insane. These cards would be so broken like a year ago at three, like just having three copies of Magnemite. That would be insane. And in fact, Magnemite going first, still pretty cracked. But aside from that, it's like, okay. At this point, we need like Bestial's Part 2. Like, unironically, where are my fire bestials, you know? Perhaps fire water bestials or something. I don't know. Like, bro, if we look at, well, Fire King specifically, well, it sure would be nice if we could do the equivalent of bestialing them, just in general, or certain other decks as well. But bestials only, of course, banish light and dark monsters. So, that's a no-go. But what we're mostly going to be looking to banish here is going to be Sacred Fire King Grunix in the graveyard. That's about it. Yeah, that's all you really need. Or banishing Lamberg is not that bad either. Or perhaps banishing like Snake Eye Oak, Snake Eye Ash, whatever. Just banishing a fire in graveyard would be epic. But at the same time, like DD Crow, significantly worse than Bestials for a myriad of reasons. So, firstly, this discards to the graveyard, and then target one card in your in your opponent's graveyard. Banish that target. So this can only banish cards in your opponent's graveyard, and it also discards itself, meaning you can call by the Crow. So against Bestials specifically, the only play you have for Bestials is to deadass like drop a monster negate or cross out. Aside from that, there's really no counterplay to Bestials, which is what has made them so strong before in the past. That and there were a lot of good later dark decks hanging around, but now without those decks, Bestials so incredibly mid. It's crazy. They have been power crept straight up. So what is the play here? Well, I guess if we look at it though, I'm sure there are a lot of fire, water decks and whatnot. Fire, water, earth, wind, all of those types of decks also playing the graveyard. In fact, at this point, unironically, it might be a good thing if we have like bestials or the equivalent of bestials or something similar to bestials that work for other attributes as well. Or we just say, fuck it, we ball, and we just drop like completely generic bestials or something like that, where it just banishes a monster in your opponent's graveyard or whatever to summon itself and then build advantage somehow. Because, uh, well, in general, our hand traps are actually beginning to fall off. It's kind of dumb. We're really starting to see it. Like, it was still kind of doable with specifically Snake Eye, right? Our hand traps were falling off then a little bit, but still salvageable. But once we throw in Fire King into the equation, it becomes quite a bit less salvageable, actually. But, you know, it's not like hand traps are just useless all of a sudden, right? The primary issue here is actually just the fact that they're falling off in general, with like every new release, hand traps are getting worse and worse. It's just crazy. Where I'm starting to consider like, do we even bother running some hand traps, or should we not even bother running anything aside from like Ash Blossom Joe Spring? Like, is there a point to all of this? Is there a point to this madness? So what we don't need to do is just like complain about Fire King, right? So Fire King, uh, it's kind of strong with like Snake Eye, I guess. It's like whatever, but the issue is probably going forward, where we'll probably start potentially getting decks stronger than like Fire King and Snake Eye and different archetypes like that as well. And the way they play around hand traps is already getting pretty bad, right? So with Fire King, specifically, how many searches do we need to perform with Fire King? Depends. It can be one, or it could be like none, because notably we cannot Ash Blossom Joy Spring like the Garunix. We cannot Ash Blossom Joy Spring Kirin. The only thing we can Ash Blossom is like Fire King Island. Onyx, if we're looking at just pure Fire King, not really much we have to do here in this case. Now that I think about it, could you play Tri Brigade Fire King? Huh, probably. But okay. Let's try not to get sidetracked here. So one of the really kind of powerful aspects to Fire King specifically is let's assume we are playing 3 copies of Fire King Skyburn, and of course 3 copies of Kirin. If we have Kirin and Fire King Skyburn, this allows us to completely play around infinite impermanence and, to a lesser extent, Effect Veiler. We're going to be at a point where, unironically, infinite impermanence is going to have to be cut because it's being power crept by this, right? And infinite impermanence is honestly becoming not enough to deal with, like, I guess, well, it's not enough to stop like turns at all, even among like weaker hands. If our opponent has just a 2-card combo, imperm, or maybe even double imperm is still not going to be enough to stop what our opponent's trying to do here, right? So let's say we do normal summon Ponix, we get hit by imperm, we already have either Fire King Sanctuary or Island, we can then just pop Ponix, special summon Garunix, and then from here, Garunix effect, if we have another imperm, we can Kirin pop the Grunix, popping Kirin to summon back the Grunix, or we could summon back whatever. And then we have like Fire King Sanctuary effect to do the pop effect, and then we have potentially then triggering the effect of Grunix in the graveyard, and then that triggers Kirin and stuff, and then it just goes crazy essentially, right? And that allows us to play pretty freely against Imperm. And of course, we can also like Fire King Skyburn to pop the Garunix as well. That is also an option. It might not necessarily be like the best option, arguably, but is an option for you to do, right? That is just considering only like Fire King Pier. If we throw in Snake Eye, of course, then there is Bonfire to grab Poplar special summon and going through all of that. And then we have like access to Promethean Princess to like summon back our guys as well. So that's Power Crypt Imperm right there, essentially, right? And this is leaving us with, honestly, the more I look at all the hand traps, the only thing that looks super consistently good is just Shifter right now. Aside from like Shifter, I don't think there's any hand trap that's going to be nearly as consistently good. I mean, like Maxi is a card that exists, but of course, there's also the aspect of everyone is going to run at minimum like 3 called by, or not 3 called by, 2 called by, and 3 Ash Blossom Joe Spring. And that means there's more counterplay, of course, to like a Maxi than a Shifter, so no real point in trying too hard for that. But yeah, we just drop a Shifter, our opponent probably loses the game. Aside from that, like there aren't that many strong hand traps that have like well, insane mileage. Like you could argue that Maxi is good, but of course the odds of opening Maxi versus your opponent opening that out to Maxi is not favored by any means. So that isn't really going to cut it. And of course, there's the aspect of okay, so what are you going to draw off of Maxi? Infinite impermanence, which, as we discussed earlier, was not so good against Arcane Snake Eye. Well, yeah, I think it's about time we get like some new hand traps. I don't think it has to be like this insanely insane, but we need something, that helps us with like more so dealing with graveyard cards. So notably, like Ghost Bell is kind of just a piece of garbage sometimes. So like for example, Ghost Bell on a Haunted Mansion can be useful against like Tearlament. It could be useful against like Fire King, right? Ghost Bell pretty useful actually because this works in the damage step because it negates activation. So we can stop like Kirin effect, if not like the Greenix effect. Greenix effect might be a bit hard, but okay. Bell does not work against Pearly though, because the effect that you would want to stop with Bell that would make sense, like for Bell, I guess, would be to stop the Pearl Lily effect to attach a spell from the graveyard and then XYZ or whatever. So that effect you cannot Bell because it is not adding from the graveyard to the hand deck and or extra deck. It is going essentially from graveyard to field, and Bell does not really do anything for graveyard to field, which is really annoying, honestly. Ugh, yeah. So we would actually need something a bit better than Bell. The issue is Bell's conditions mostly, I guess. So not a whole lot we have here. Oh, but well, yeah, there's realistically nothing that we have in terms of hand traps that's like super good. Even if it's not like an auto win, just having something that's in general effective would be nice. So if we look at the difference between like Crow and Bestials, it's like night and day. If we just disregard the fact that this is not only targeting monsters only, but light or darks only, this has very low counterplay in comparison to Crow, where you can called by it, you can cross out Crow. You can just not worry too much about Crow either, because Crow will just banish the one card, and meanwhile Bestial Magma will grab you like another Bestial, so we could do like add Bestial Lubellion, grabbing Druisworm, banish another guy, and then Lubellion effect to grab like Regained or Beast, so there's that, and then Druisworm effect to send to the graveyard, and then Red Beast effect to pop, or Regained effect to like draw and summon back like a Bestial or something, right? Completely insane. Versus, I will banish one card, and yeah, that's it. You gonna add a card next turn or something? Nope. Build advantage off this somehow? Nope. Yeah, that's how it be. So, the disparity right now between hand traps and just, I guess in general, like engine, it, it's it's pretty painful. I would say. So, Droll, for example, I guess that this might be like pretty good right now, but it's good against like one deck and then not the other. So I don't know how I feel about this type of thing either. But yeah, in general, right now, a lot of our hand traps are getting powercraft insanely fast. Even like Bestial Magma is at the point where we could put it back to 3 right now. Right now, like it might be problematic later, but right now, completely fine, no problem whatsoever to put Bestials back to 3, which is insane considering how broken they were before. And we actually had, I would argue, for the most part, like no good decks that were not light and dark. But now the only decks worth playing, some might be thinking, are like just fire decks, right? So just insane power creep all around. And of course, this aspect is kind of annoying, where Ash Blossom Joy Spring is pretty much a mandatory card. And if you were to attempt to Ash Blossom your opponent, it feels kind of sacky and annoying, right? So let's say my opponent has one starter, right? So perhaps they have only a Poplar, only a Bonfire, only a Ponyx, or only Fire King Island, right? I can Ash that, and then my opponent's turn is over, and I might win. I might be able to just play for free next turn. For the most part, I might have to deal with some hand traps, but maybe I can manage, right? But then on the flip side of it, oh, my opponent has an extender. They actually use this Ash Blossom Joe Spring as an extender because they can Hita and then Promethean Princess off of our Ash Blossom Joe Spring, and now we have to deal with that. And that's just like, you know, just, yeah. So there's that aspect as well, where we have to run Ash Blossom, but Ash Blossom is just sacky. Like, it could win me the game if I Ash here, or just completely lose the game because I Ashed here, which is just a bit annoying. So if we had some, like, perhaps, I don't know, what I say, like some non-fire monsters that we can play that do something, like Effect Veiler doesn't really do anything. DD Crow, does this do something? Eh, kinda. But yeah. In general, we're not really getting anywhere with these hand traps. Not as much as mileage as before with like Bistrels. Specifically, like what I'm interested in, of course, is more like archetypal hand traps. Like kind of like tier limit, but like maybe not that busted. But just in general, if we had more of those, we'd have more options to play going second without it being as frustrating. Because playing second right now is just insanely frustrating because your hand traps might not be effective, or your hand traps are completely ineffective because your opponent is playing some garbage like stun. So not a whole lot we can do as a player here except to play out the hand we are given. But if we don't have the tools to begin with in our deck, there is nothing we can play with in our hand anyway. So yeah, that's all I got for you guys today, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.